Welcome to the off season of our Madden 24 Panthers franchise. Before we get into this video, be sure to hit like, hit the subscribe button, and hit the like button. If I didn't, I told you to hit like, so actually don't hit it twice. Don't hit the like button twice, 'cause that takes away the likes. Just hit it once. So we have to get into these retirements, and for us, I don't know if thankfully or not thankfully, no retirements we have to deal with, but Aaron Rodgers calls it a career, Graham Gano retires, Darius Slay, Travis Kelce retires, kind of some Von Miller retires, so some decent sized names are calling it a career here in the franchise. So some decent names here that we're not going to notice anymore as we move forward in this franchise. So yeah, none of our players retired. Remember last season we actually had Adam Thielen retired on us, and Pete Carroll retires, so he won't be the coach at Seattle anymore. So there is that. Here are our stats for the season. I'm going to get into this. Bryce Young, almost 4,000 yards, 30 touchdowns to 15 interceptions, and 50 sacks on the year. Yeah. I don't know. It's weird. Like, that's like technically a good season, but it just really didn't feel like that. Ty Chandler, leading rusher for us, 1,000 yards, 1,107 yards actually, 8 touchdowns on the season for him. Bryce Young, 4 rushing touchdowns. The other rushing touchdowns were taken by Chuba Hubbard, who we traded to the Ravens before the deadline. So there is that. Then for receiving, we got Jermaine Burton, 977 yards, so almost 1,000-yard season. Again, I talked about this before, we might still do it, but I feel like before we start next season, I might need to up him to just star, kind of do a player review on him, but he had a great season. So did John Mechie. He had a pretty good season as well. So did Jonathan Mingo. So Hayden Hurst had a very good season. Ricky Pearsall came in late in the season, had more than Tommy Trumbull. Then for offensive line, Kieran Amagati, 10 sacks allowed. Ikem Okwanu, 10 sacks allowed, and then kind of gets better when you get to the interior. Those guys aren't, at least we didn't get too many sacks right up the middle. I suppose that's like the positive, that our interior linemen didn't do that. But in terms of downs played to sacks given up, it was Christensen there who had a great season. Didn't give up any sacks. There are the tackle numbers. Here are the TFL numbers. Brian Burns led the way in that. Very nice stuff right there. Then we go take a look here at the sacks. My sack or your sack, I don't know. But 12.5 sacks on the year for Brian Burns was pretty nice. Yetur Gross Matos with 8 sacks. Derek Big Brown came in with 8 sacks as well. Then Javon Kinlaw with 5.5. Isaiah Simmons with 5. Travis Jones with 2.5. DJ Jones with 2. And Kyrus Barnes with a sack on the season for him as well. So, he doesn't blitz too often, so that's probably why he didn't have as many. But then JC Horn with 11 interceptions. That's a really nice number for him. You got Jeremy Chin with 5, Jeff Okuda with 3, and then everyone kind of gets 1 here. Very nice stuff in terms of that. That really turned our season around when JC Horn started just like kind of going nuts with interceptions, it felt like. So we have the upcoming draft here. Here is the mock draft. Who are we projected to take? Well, it is a defensive lineman, Brian Barnes, out of Washington. Then Kevin Fisher, left tackle. You see no quarterbacks yet. George Brenner is the first quarterback expected to go off the board, but that's still till 15. And Brenner's an interesting case because if he goes to LA, he would be a backup to Matthew Stafford, who's still in the league. And then you see the other quarterback there, Paul Foote, is projected to be the second quarterback taken. So Brenner and Foote. Brenner looks really good. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in this video. We have to accept this 5th-year option for Ikem Okwanu. Gonna bring him back, of course. struggled at times, but left tackles don't grow on trees. And because he has superstar, I am willing to kind of deal with some of his issues because we can still, upgrade him and progress him as a player. But some other guys are not going to be here. Xavier Woods not going to be here. Terrence Marshall Jr. not going to be here. Christensen is probably not going to be here much. He's probably just not. We're going to go a different direction there. Ian Thomas not going to be back. Caden Wallace is a guy that we probably are going to bring back. Still young. So I view it as just a positive to have a relatively cheap tackle that we can just kind of, throw in there if we have to. Good to have depth at tackle, in my opinion. But rest of these guys, Travis Adams not going to be back. Joe Schobert not going to be back. Carson Strong not going to be back. Antonio Hamilton not going to be back. These guys begin to regress just because of the age. Not going to bring Antonio Hamilton back. Played a decent role for us this past year. It's just a spare defensive back to have, but just, not going to bring him back. Probably want to get a little bit younger at that position. So that's kind of the logic behind that. Eddie Pinheiro, Johnny Hecker, not going to be back. We're going to go a different direction at punter and kicker. So yeah, going to do that. So combine results are in. Guys went to the combine, and George Brenner looks good to me, right? Has great throw power, elite change of direction, good speed, elite strength. So great acceleration, great agility. Tells me he'll be able to navigate the pocket a bit, and won't be a statue back there by any means. So, I don't want to say exactly dual threat because he only ran a 4.67. That was like a 4.57. I'd be like, okay, we got something here. But if this cornerback falls to us, well, then we might just take this corner, maybe roll with Bryce Young, maybe see what's in the second round at quarterback. If we go cornerback in this first round, Pat Reed looks really good here. Elite acceleration, elite jumping, elite speed, 4.36 40. Only 10 reps, but he's a corner, not expecting a lot of reps, but he looks really good to the point where, again, if he falls to us where we're sitting in the draft, then that's the guy that we're probably going to take, right? We're probably going to take the cornerback. A catching, B block shedding, A man coverage. This all looks really good. B zone coverage. This seems like a no-brainer to me. Then Dion Lewis, a defensive tackle. I thought, if you remember at the start of this season, a lot of our scouts, we kind of focus on defensive tackles and left ends, or not left ends, but defensive ends, things like that. That's where we've put a lot of our scouting focus. I'm going to be honest, none of these defensive tackles really stand out to me. I went through a lot of these guys and just nothing stood out. I didn't see anything that was like Benjamin Smart or Javon Upshaw from the Bears series, where we looked at those guys and we were like, okay, these guys just kind of stand out. Those guys were just freaks. Brody Nichols looks all right, I would say. Jamar Cook looks okay. Elite strength. Kind of interesting there. But again, everything else is just kind of just none of these defensive tackles stood out to me. None of these defensive tackles, defensive line prospects were like, oh my God, gotta go get this guy. Brian Barnes does look good. A block shedding, but only C power moves, so there's still a lot of work to be done there. Like I said, in the Bears franchise, Javon Upshaw and Benjamin Smart, those are guys that just came in and immediately just turned our defense around. Keon Gross kind of looks all right too, but just kind of looks like, again, these guys just look all right. And I don't know if we need any more just all right players, especially if we're going to be drafting them. I think we need, high-end, exceptional players, especially with this first-round pick that we have. Because the goal is to be picking this high. So outside of the draft, the other ways to improve your team is free agency, right? And we still have a lot of cap space. Corners, there's some good corners, but they're a little bit older, and I don't want to pay them. yeah, I know that sounds weird. Just don't want to pay the older corners. So we're looking through here. You know, Dre Greenlaw, Amari Cooper looks really good, but Wyatt Teller just kind of stood out to me here. Offensive lineman. And, you know, I know Zach Zinter, you know, he did start for us most of the season at right guard. But, you know, I think just go out, just get an immediate upgrade here, and that would be Wyatt Teller. We look through the rest of these guys. Khalil Mack starting to regress a little bit here. Jelani Tavai looks kind of interesting. And again, just looking through these guys, and we definitely do want to upgrade at kicker and punter as well. But our first order of business is going to be a fullback. I like to actually, I know it sounds weird, I like having an actual fullback that's just like, that's his job. He's the fullback, as opposed to throwing a tight end out there. Gonna bring back Tommy Tremble, actually, but we're gonna change that contract up just a slight bit, actually. Gonna bring that bonus money down a little bit, raise the actual salary, bring the bonus down a little bit more. He's okay with the offer. I don't think he'll be getting too many more offers, honestly. So I'm pretty confident we'll be able to re-sign him. Then Wyatt Teller, could offer him a 2-year deal. And we're looking around here. What type of deal do we want to do here? And, you know, looking around here and looking through these kind of pre-made offers that they have for us, very friendly. Again, we're not really on his board too much, but we're just gonna give him a 4-year deal. We're gonna change this bonus money a little bit. We're gonna bring that down, bring the salary up just a tad bit here, kind of split the baby here, and send in an offer here for Wyatt Teller. Just want an immediate upgrade at that position, as opposed to Zach Zinter, who I thought struggled. So, you know, we'll bring in Wyatt Teller, hopefully. Find a kicker here who's pretty young. Gonna send him a 4-year offer. And then for punter, looking around here, we're gonna go with Ryan Stonehouse. And another guy, he's only 26. So I'm gonna send him a 4-year offer as well. And just immediately upgrade both kicker and punter, and then also not have to worry about them for probably the rest of this franchise series. Looking through here, some other guys that we have to cut, whose contracts are kind of, you know, time to cut them, time to move on from them, get some of these lower end guys out of here. Doesn't make sense to cut Miles Sanders yet. Yeah, still has a contract that just kind of doesn't allow me to cut him. And this is just clearing up little bits of cap space for us. So we kind of trimmed down our running back room. Probably gonna need another running back. We'll address that in the draft. Tight end, gonna get rid of both of these guys. Hayden Hurst, he regressed hard here, actually. He was like mid-70s, all the way down to like the 60s now. Isaac Rex, gonna get cut here as well. And then Hayden Hurst, he was our leading tight end, right? He was pretty reliable, made some nice plays for us, but the regression hit him hard here. It just did. -7 catching. Just, yeah, can't have that. And yeah, we're going to free up $6 million cap. Going to be a $2 million penalty. So long to Hayden Hurst. Cade May is going to get cut as well. No need for him on the roster anymore. So we come here. Elijah Molden. We need another safety. Because we got rid of Xavier Woods. He didn't resign. Or we didn't resign. So here's our free agent class here. Wyatt Teller, Stonehouse, Gillum, and Cardi so far. But hopefully we can get Tyquan Lewis to sign here. Just a spare defensive line player. Elijah Molden and Tommy Trumbull. Looking through here. Need some extra defensive tackle help potentially here. And TJ Slayton. Big old TJ Slayton. Looking to bring him in here just to have some extra defensive tackle depth. He's still only age 27, so sign him to a 2-year deal. Get him for this year and next season as well. And yeah, that's a pretty good deal for us. And we do get him, actually. TJ Slayton and Tyquan Lewis. So I think we had a pretty successful free agent class. I liked it. Getting Elijah Molden, I think, is pretty nice for us. 3-year deal, still young, still has a little bit of developmental things to get for us, and it's good to have good defensive back play, I think. So that is free agency. Nothing too crazy, but I do think we get a big addition to our offensive line. I was just tired of seeing Zach Zinter on his butt. I felt like every other play. So come back here, mock draft number 5. How is this thing kind of falling here? Looks like an offensive lineman can be going number 1 overall. I wish Madden, the AI, was a little smarter, because they'd probably trade out of that pick. But right before us, Pat Reed is expected to go to the Buccaneers. You see Paul Foote and George Brenner, quarterbacks right there. Another quarterback, Rob Schneider, expected to go to the Seahawks right there. We're going to look at those quarterbacks. We're going to get a kind of an idea of all of them. But George Brenner and Paul Foote, that's such a weird name. But those are 2 quarterbacks we're going to take a look at. We're in position to probably take them. And it seems like right now, the rest of the league, in terms of these mock drafts, we're not expected to take a quarterback. They don't think we're going to do it. But Rob Schneider, throw power is just solid. Doesn't look like that good of a quarterback, honestly. So I would say not going to draft him. But let's say Pat Reed falls to us. Well, then Zaire Ellington would be a perfect second-round quarterback, in my opinion. So my idea was, if Pat Reed falls to us, we'll take Pat Reed, and then maybe we'll trade up to the top of the second, then take Zaire Ellington, and then roll with Bryce Young for next season was my idea. But Paul Foote, he looks really good here. This, to me, if Pat Reed's off the board, this is my thought process, Pat Reed's off the board, then Paul Foote or George Brenner would make a lot of sense at quarterback. Big time arms. Paul Foote might have the better arms in terms of pure strength, but I think in terms of, other things at quarterback, George Brenner looks like the better athlete while still having a really good arm. And A, throw on the run, A, throw under pressure, A, short accuracy, B, medium accuracy, B, deep accuracy, B, stiff arm, A, break sack, B, play action. So I think there's all these little things here that George Brenner just kind of does better than Paul Foote. But Zaire Ellington also looks like to me, it looks like if I had to rank these quarterbacks, it'd probably be George Brenner 1, Zaire Ellington 2, and then Paul Foote 3, and then there's the rest of the guys. So through the draft here, let's get into it. Curtis Williams goes to the Patriots number 1 overall. The Patriots actually signed Kyler Murray. So after the Cardinals drafted Drake May, I did edit Kyler Murray's contract so he would be a free agent after this season, so he could go elsewhere, because I know they just wouldn't trade him. And again, this is an online franchise, so I can't go in there and do things to make that happen. So the Buccaneers, do they take the cornerback that we're interested in, Pat Reed? And they do. So this, to me, locks me into what I'm going to do here. And I thought about this a lot, but I just felt like those, there's just moments with Bryce Young where that lack of arm strength, it just shows up, and it's just an inability to really push the ball down the field. I think if we stuck with him, we could maybe, he'd probably finally get a power upgrade or 2 and finally get to 90. But I think I'd rather just reset that quarterback clock and just get a guy who already has a great arm, and that is going to be George Brenner out of Oregon. Beautiful spiral on all his passes, fast flick of the wrist throwing motion. That's what we're going with. Hidden dev as well. 93 throw power, 83 speed, 93 change of direction, agility is at 88, acceleration's at 89, 83 speed. And that's our new quarterback 1 right there. We reset the timer on the quarterback contract here. George Brenner, the quarterback for us moving forward. And the Bryce Young era comes to an end here after 2 years. And we're going to move immediately here to get Bryce Young somewhere else. He showed that he could play last season. And we're looking around here. What do we want to do here? These trade offers just a little too unrealistic. I feel like we'd be kind of just stealing, candy from a baby here if we took this one with the Broncos. And also, I don't want a 4th round pick, and I don't really want a player back. I'm looking around here. Can we just get some draft picks? Some of these, I'm trying to find something kind of interesting here, and just not finding anything that I like. The Saints coming with an offer. Jackson Smith and Jigba comes in there. It's like that. That's kind of interesting. Again, feels like I'm stealing here. But Bryce Young showed he could play, at the very least. It's just that he's not the quarterback for me. So maybe another team. Clearly, another team's like he could be the quarterback for them. So we're gonna get Bryce Young into a situation where he can, play and win. We looked through here, and we found the Broncos. The only quarterback they have on their roster is Teddy Bridgewater. So we go to the Broncos and say, hey, how about instead of spending your 1st round pick on a quarterback, you only spend maybe a 2nd round pick on a quarterback instead. You can keep your 1st round pick. Maybe a 2nd, maybe a 3, who knows? But we asked for a 2 and a 4. That's all I want back for Bryce Young. Do you want this? We go to the Denver Broncos, of course, and the Broncos, maybe the Broncos, they like doing this, but this is a really young quarterback here in Bryce Young who is still good. They accept the offer. So Bryce Young headed to Denver for a 2nd round pick and a 4th round pick in this year's draft. I want a compensation in this draft, not, next year's draft or the year after that. I want a compensation in this year's draft, and we get it. I probably could have asked for a 2 in next year's draft as well, but it is what it is. So we come here, the 2nd round, pick number 11. Looking around, thought about Brody Nichols here. Even thought about a running back right here. But then we go to our favorites that we have, all these guys that we thought about, and we find this receiver, and 6'5", 220 plus pounds, 22 years old, out of Ohio State. Ran a 4.45 at the combine. They ran a 4.38 at his pro day. Pretty good vertical jump here, 38 and a half. Good shuttle time. B medium. Route running probably needs a little bit of work, but the catch in traffic is an A. B catching in general. It looks good to me, and I like to just have an extra wide receiver. I feel like you can never have too many wide receivers. And also here, we take Devontae Dickerson out of Ohio State. 93 speed, 91 jumping. Also, hidden dev trait as well on him. So, a very nice pick, I would say, on our first 2 picks of this draft. So, we come back here now with an additional 2nd round pick here, I believe. And we take a tight end, Tyson Porter, looking to get a little bit younger at that tight end position. We didn't sign any tight ends, so of course we had to get a little bit younger there, and we do here. Tyson Porter looks decent. We come back here now a little bit later in this draft and looking around, and it is Brandon Hobbs. This linebacker looks pretty good. Kyrus Barnes, I believe he's starting to get there a little bit in age, so want to start kind of getting a little bit of youth in there. And Brandon Hobbs, 21 years old, not a hidden depth player, but 89 speed, 79 jumping, change of directions is pretty good, 90 acceleration, good agility. Looks like a pretty good player to me. And then we take here at another off-ball linebacker. This is Byron Lawrence. Says that he's a left outside linebacker, but is more than likely, for us is going to be a middle linebacker. We're not going to put, Byron Lawrence out on the edge. Would be if we played in a 4-3, we could just keep him there. But when we put him in here, we're going to change that position to middle linebacker. And he comes in with hidden dev. The issue here is he's 23, speed's an 81. If I had to take a guess, probably a star dev player. So, I was somewhat intrigued by it. The physicals, not as great, particularly with that speed. So we need an extra cornerback as well. And we're looking through here, and Daryl Watkins looks pretty interesting. A press, 22 years old, ran a 4.57, 4.51 on his pro day. B catching, B hit power, A press, C zone coverage. Looks okay. Might as well nab him here. See what he has. You know, I was kind of hoping to see maybe some more of that blue dev trait magic and just normal dev here. 89 speed, 94 jumping. Actually, it's pretty nice. It's a pretty good jump rating. Yeah, kind of interesting. Nothing to really write home about. Just a decent prospect here. And we look through here again, and this is going to be Mateo Portillo, another tight end, but he's a little bit bigger than Tyson Porter. Elite strength, A catch in traffic, A pass block, B awareness, B impact block. So kind of more of that traditional tight end as opposed to Tyson Porter. You see, I mean, look at the size. I believe Porter's like 232. This guy's 271 pounds, 6'4". So a little bit of thunder and lightning kind of at tight end with Porter and Portillo. Kind of a cool little name thing there. So that isn't our full draft. Those are our main picks right there. And yeah, pretty good here. George Brenner, I think, looks really good, honestly. And I don't think he's too far off of where Bryce Young is right now. So I think that's why I kind of like the idea of kind of resetting things a little bit, resetting the clock at quarterback. I think that's something you're going to see more teams do, where they're just say, you know what, this guy might be okay, but we can probably just reset it. I mean, 73 overall, he's 2 overall points off of where Bryce Young is. He's going to get those dev trait points pretty quickly. So 80 deep accuracy, 76 medium accuracy, 86 short accuracy, the 93 throw power, 87 throw on the run, 75 play action, 79 under pressure, 82 break sack, 66 awareness. Kind of an issue because that means when we slide with him when we're scrambling, we're not going to get an actual slide animation. We're going to get the fall forward. Then Devontae Dickerson looks really good here. I mean, 6'5", almost 230 pounds. If we're being honest here, who this reminds me of Kelvin Benjamin a little bit in terms of the physical and things like that, but hopefully it doesn't work out like Kelvin Benjamin. That's the first thing I thought of was, hey, wait a minute, Kelvin Benjamin. The Panthers have had history with guys like this before in this build, but he looks like a really good athlete. You guys know me, I like finding these big body receivers, and yeah, Tyson Porter, 235 pounds. Again, like I said, 6'6", but again, probably more of that new age tight end. And then Mateo is, you know, more of that traditional tight end role. You know, Porter, not as good at blocking as Mateo is. So I think that's kind of interesting that we kind of managed to kind of find kind of like the polar opposites of the position here within like the same round. I think it just makes a lot of sense that that would probably happen in real life, honestly, if you think about it. That's kind of how things roll in the draft. But then we find this, we get through here late in this draft, and I think we had a really good draft. We see Portillo, 69 overall, Watkins a 68 overall, Hobbs a 71 overall. We found this running back late in the draft, Bruce Wilbon, and he looks good. 94 speed, 91 acceleration, 91 agility, 81 carrying, you know, spin move looks good, change of direction looks good, juke move looks good. Yeah, I mean, injury is a little concerning there at a 78 overall, but it is what it is. Hopefully we don't have to deal with that too much. Then our last pick was a quarterback. Again, Derek Bush out of Penn State. He looks good. That's kind of wild. Like, this was a quarterback I kind of looked at as well. If we would have kept Bryce Young, this was a late round guy, but 89 throw power, accuracy ratings look good, awareness looks good, throw on the run looks good. So yeah, this guy looks solid, honestly. You know, I think this is really good. So get that in the 7th round. That's great. Pull foot, 94 throw power. So that's the difference between elite and great, is one kind of throw power point. I think that's honestly a little bit higher awareness for Foot, but I don't think Foot's as good of an athlete that Brenner is. So I'm pretty happy with what we got here. I think I would have been fine with either one of those guys, whether it was Foot or Brenner. But I think Brenner has a little more upside than Foot does. And then Zaire Ellington goes to the Raiders. It was a quarterback. If we would have kept Bryce Young, if Pat Reed would have fell to us, this is probably who we would have taken in the second round. He ends up on the Raiders. 92 throw power, 71 awareness, higher than both Brenner and Foot. And accuracies look pretty not as good as either one of them. So really interesting there. And then Rob Schneider, quarterback they recommended to us, kind of feels like we would have just ended up with kind of like a Bryce Young type quarterback, except 6'3" out of Liberty. So glad we kind of ignored that. 63 overall too. And the Chargers took him like in the third round. I don't get what they were thinking there. But here is the team, and Wyatt Teller there at left guard, Corbett at right guard. So there is the lineman right now, or the line right now. It looks a lot better. The weak spot, of course, is Ahmad Jadi. Hopefully he plays better this season. This is not the final starting lineup for our wide receiver room. John Mechie is not going to be our starting wide receiver. That's just not going to happen. He's not going to be our one for sure. I don't think he's that type of receiver, if I'm being honest. I don't think he can play on the outside. They look here at our defense, kind of the same as last season. One of the things that we are going to be looking at before we start the season is probably trading for another corner. I don't want to give up a first round pick for a spare corner, especially if it's going to be like a rental. I would have no problem giving up a 2 and a 4. So I might change the quality of corner we can get, but I definitely want to grab another corner that's at least, like an 85, maybe 82-ish overall at worst. So that's something we're going to be kind of looking to do when we get back into the offseason. The offseason's finished. When we come here for preseason, we're not going to play any of the preseason games. You already know me. I don't touch the preseason games that often. So we're not going to do that. We are going to get through training camp and maybe the final bit of this roster construction here. So I want to thank you guys for watching this video. I really appreciate it. This was super long, 32 minutes. You guys are troopers for watching all of this. If you did watch all of this, if you're still here at this point in the video, give yourself a round of applause. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.